Hello, I'm Premanition, and today I'm going to be talking about Ableton's effect, Looper. It's a really cool effect, and I really like it. I've been playing with it a lot lately, and I think that you can use it at any stage of your production, whether it's before you've even conceived of the idea of a song. You can play around with it to experiment with different things. You can experiment using MIDI, drums, and audio. You can use it during your production, like while you're building the song. Maybe you have some vocal effects that you want to layer, but you want to do it kind of immediately right on top of each other. Or you could even use it for live performances, like an actual looping station, like hardware kind of thing. Ed Sheeran is the first example that comes to mind for someone who really popularized live looping in the scene. A lot of people, multi-instrumentalists, singers, all types of people have been doing looping for a really long time. Live looping has been around for a while, and I think it's really cool that Ableton came up with kind of a virtual way to encompass everything that a live looper does. So I'll be walking you through kind of the different controls that are in the looper. We'll kind of switch to my screen in a second, and then I'll go through how you can record a drum loop, how you can record a MIDI loop, and then how you can record a vocal loop. So let's get started. So here's a close-up look at the looper. You can find it in the category under audio effects. And it has a couple of options for like how many bars you want, but you can set it here. So I'll go through the different buttons and what they mean. Because there's like, if you don't understand how a looper works, it can be a little bit confusing, but it's honestly really straightforward. So this area, which is blank right now, it's going to indicate how many bars you're recording. And when we kind of go through the demos, you'll be able to see, but based on, like how, maybe you set 4 bars, it's going to indicate all those 4 bars and also the beats in between, the quarter beats in between. And this area here is kind of showing you the status, because a looper has different statuses. It has a record status, a overdub status, which is where it's playing back what you recorded before, and it's also recording what you're doing in that moment. And then it has a stop status to stop the entire thing. And then it has a playback, which means you just play back everything that you've recorded and layered up until that point. So this is indicating your status. This is indicating the BPM of your song. I like to set it before I start looping, because if you're going to get into live looping, I think timing is probably the biggest, most important thing about it, because if your timing's off, then it's just going to be a big old mess and not sound really good. So the length here is about your bars. So if you record a 4-bar loop, you can actually divide it by 2, so you can turn it into a 2-bar loop if you want, or you can turn it into an 8-bar loop, and so forth. Just kind of keep going with it. And this little drag me icon here, you can actually, once you record stuff, you can drag out the audio, pull it out, and then put it into an audio channel, and then just have that. And you can do that for like kind of each separate layer that you put in. So this big button, this is kind of the main one that you want to get familiar with. And I would suggest when you're doing looping, you might want to map like either a key from your keyboard or MIDI map, a key from like a musical keyboard or a push device or whatever, what have you, to kind of turn this into the different states. So right now it's showing that if I click it, it's going to record. So if you click it once, the first time, it'll record something for however long you set. And then if you click it again, it's going to start overdubbing. And then if you click it again, it's just going to do the playback. And then if you click it twice in a row, it'll stop. And that's kind of how looper devices, like hardware devices, work too, like with the pedals, like for guitarists, for example. It's quite similar. So I think that that's what they were trying to emulate about the actual device. And what I think is really cool is, like, as a guitarist, I want to be able to use this looper. I don't have to buy, the Boss RC30 right now while I'm learning how to live loop. I can just buy like a $30 foot pedal from like M Audio and use that, MIDI map it to this, and then there you go. I have a foot pedal on this live looper, and I can practice with that instead of spending all my money on something that maybe I realize I'm not very good at. But anyways, this button is the ultimate control for your entire looper. This undo button here, you can undo basically anything that you've recorded and you don't like it. It'll take out the last recording. The clear button, be careful with this one because it'll erase the entire loop. Like, it'll erase everything, every layer that you've built. So if you did a 5-6 layer loop, it's all going to be gone and you'll start from the beginning again. Quantization. So this is basically where your looper is going to start recording. So if you say global, it's just gonna, you press it and it will start. And because if you have the metronome going, you might want like a bar or something to give yourself 1 bar. Like, I personally like to set it to 1 bar. So when I have my metronome going, I can just start it at the next bar. And here we have the record, like how many bars. So X bars, you can just go to your heart's will, however long, however short. It could be an in-between number if you like that sort of thing. And you can go as long as 16 bars. That is like crazy long, like good for you if you're just doing that. So if you're just looping that, it'll be a very long looping session, but it's an option. And then, you can go as short as 1 bar. I personally like to keep it at 4 bars just to, come up with my length of idea is usually a 4-bar idea for the most part. I'm going to set it at 4 bars. And for song control, this is basically the looper, how much control you allow the looper to have on the rest of your production. So if you say start song, that means when you start the looper, your entire production is going to begin at that point. You can set it at none if you don't want the looper to control any start or stop of your song. And then you can also have it, if you do want it to control the start and stop of your song, you can set it that way. Tempo control, this one I will set at follow the song tempo. If you have it set and follow the song tempo, that means whatever speed you were looping at, it's going to set your tempo for you. If you set a tempo beforehand, it just makes sense to follow your song tempo or not at all. So that's kind of up to you. So the speed area here, this is kind of interesting. It's like a extra effect kind of thing. So if you looped something, like I'll show you when we get into it, but if you loop something, you can speed up the audio to make it significantly faster, or you can slow it down to make it kind of that lower formant voice that sounds kind of interesting, creepy sometimes, if that's the effect you're going for. And what I think is kind of cool though is the reverse effect. So if you press this, everything you've layered in the loop up until that point is going to be completely reversed. So you could have a very different sound and kind of experiment with it if that's the mood you're going for. One thing which I found interesting was that when you press the reverse button and then you overdub something, everything up until the point that you press reversed will be reversed, but then whatever you record after is going to be kind of not reversed, if that makes sense. So and maybe that's what you want. And if you press reverse again, then what you recorded after, like it'll be kind of opposite. So just keep that in mind. And so this last area, feedback, this is basically how much of the layers you're going to hear back from the looper. So leave it at 100%. But if the more you lessen it, like the looper was slowly going to start to fade out kind of thing. And maybe that's a good way to end a song or something. And then this is just kind of what you want to be hearing. Maybe you just want to hear the record or the overdub. Maybe you want to only never monitor anything, or monitor record, overdub, and stop only. But I'm just going to keep it at always to be able to hear. And so those are kind of the main controls of the looper. And I think now we can play with it and I'll show you what you can do. Here I just put in like a regular 808 drum rack into a MIDI track, and I have my push to kind of control that. So I have that kind of going, and I'll just show you kind of how you can start to record a drum loop here. So I'm going to set my metronome. So we're just playing it back now. And if I want to overdub, I can. Press play to play it back. So here it's kind of showing the status. And then you can like layer, you know, add as many layers as you want. And I could even speed this up. Like that, slow it down. Kind of like this one, that's kind of cool. So yeah, you can really just, this is great for experimenting with. So here we are recording a MIDI loop of just like a lead synth, Brassicana. And yeah, I'll just show you kind of, I'm going to start the metronome again. So it's going, and we can layer it. I'm going to do the overdub. So yeah, you can layer this to play with your synths too. So here I'm just going to show you my whole screen, and I added reverb on the end because I don't really want to record anything with reverb in it already. So I want to make sure that, you know, I can control the dry wet, the decay time, whatever I want without it already being recorded into the looper. So because Ableton reads left to right, just make sure that you know like what effects you want before the looper and then what you want to be able to control after the looper too. Here I'm going to lay down kind of a basic ooh sound to begin with 4 bars, and then we're going to overdub it. Ooh, 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 So right now it's just in playback. So let's see what it sounds like when we speed it up a little. A little bit chipmunky, but maybe you could edit the vocals a little bit to make that sound a little bit different. And slow it down. I mean, that's a different mood entirely. You can kind of see what the effect sounds like if we reverse it. I think that kind of sounds cool. So, I mean, yeah, with this you can experiment, add more layers. You can see the bars counting backwards now that we're going in reverse. I'll put it back. I can undo the last layer that I did. I can redo it too, or clear the whole thing. So that's the looper effect, and I hope you have fun with it. I think it's a great time right now, you know, lack of being able to meet with people and jam. You can kind of jam with yourself and then see what you come up with, like layer instruments. You can plug in a guitar, like a trombone, whatever you want, or have a bunch of MIDI instruments and then just loop and loop until you come up with a song. I hope you enjoyed my little tutorial and happy looping. This is Premanition. Bye.